It's Spoilerin time. This is a companion show to Cordkillers. Cordkillers, we figure out what's going to be coming out. How do we watch it? What services do we need to use? And then we take all the information, watch some stuff, and talk about it here. This week, we'll be spoiling The Larry Sanders Show, episode 6 and 7 of season 5. I Know This Much Is True, episode 6, the final episode of that miniseries, and Warrior Nuns, season 1, episodes 7 and 8. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Hey, I actually watched all three of those programs.
What?
I did my job. Where do you want to begin? Where are we starting?
You circle back to the fact that you did watch I Know This Much Is True and why that happened, but let's start with Warrior Nun, episodes 7 and 8 of season 1. We only have 2 more episodes left, so we're ramping it up towards the end. This was Ephesians 4:22 through 24. I'm with you now, Brian. These were fun for a while, but I'm kind of tired of these titles. Ephesians and Proverbs, I will call them. And it starts with, oh, don't worry, Ava will come back to the church. And then Ava goes to the scientists. Instead, we get a push, a coup, you might say, happen where the cardinal comes in and swaps in his own previously rejected warriors, sisters, for the current ones, and Giles and a crew of loyalists go on the run to look for Ava, where they find her at the science place. And now they're all at the science place, and she has to figure out how to walk through a big concrete brick wall.
Always call him Giles, please.
So
I rather liked them recasting, if not in actuality, at least in possibility, the possibility that the science people aren't just the devil bad guys, right? So she's there to be like, hey, what's going on? I've got these powers, I've got these things, let's do some tests. And of course, they're all like, well, this seems like an opportunity to not be definitely the bad guys. Let's use it to definitely prove we're the bad guys by hooking her up as a power generator to a test we're running downstairs. I dug.
But then it turns out, what I liked about that is I was a little disappointed at that point. But then when we find out she's doing it to save her son, and that it might have worked, and that she's going to keep helping and not do that again, I'm like, all right. You're starting to win me back a little bit.
Well, and I like the fact that now she is in category, instead of obvious, definite bad guy, she is in obvious, definite bad person who might be of use in a future face-off against actual demons or the devil or whatever.
I don't know if I'd even call her a bad person, but someone who's not going to be relied upon to make the best choices for you because she's very self-interested about saving herself.
You know who she is? She's in G.I. Joe. Was his name Zoltan, the guy that would turn blue? I remember G.I. Joe was facing off against Cobra. They had to grab all the gizmos or whatever. And I remember at some point they got it and they gave it to G.I. Joe instead of Cobra. And one of his team says, I thought we were on Cobra's side. He goes, no, idiot, we're on our side. And if G.I. Joe has one and Cobra has one, that makes us all the more powerful to both of them. And so that's where I'm at this point on there.
And of course, the voice of Zoltan, provided by the same woman who plays the scientist. No.
Yes.
Also, Lilith's back.
I'm not entirely sure how I felt about that. It felt just sort of like a surprise gotcha. You thought there was penalties. There's not. I was much more interested in the follow-up training episode. I loved all of the, working the way through, walking through walls and all of that stuff. That was really interesting.
Oh, like emotional walls.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise I'd be like, just keep going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Take 2 steps forward. It's like, well, wouldn't that put you out? Like, just take any steps forward.
Yeah. If you know what forward is, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, but I thought they handled that well, where it's like, oh, it's not just the direction. It's like the ability to concentrate and know what's going on and all of that. That made sense for me. I also think with Lilith, they're going to pull another trick like they did with the scientist, where we feel like, oh, that was easy. Now she's back. They keep hinting that there's something else going on with Lilith. that she may not be entirely unfazed by her
Maybe
trip beyond
instead of a halo, she came back from hell with horns
with a hello.
or a trident. Yeah, right? I mean, we saw the healing.
They did make a reference to a portal that goes to somewhere else.
The next
in air
life.
quotes. Yeah, exactly.
Where there's no death and disease.
No. Wait,
what she said?
Well, that's the legend. Yeah.
right.
That's what's going to save the sun, right? They're going to go to that place and live forever.
So separately, I thought the second episode of the two was way, way better. I loved seeing Giles, I will never learn his real name, roll back his sleeves and you see these, sleeve tattoos and and implying that he has a bigger history than we would ever have dared guessed. I like the sisterhood now being on the fringes, apparently cast out from the structure of the Catholic Church. So now they're renegades with enemies on all sides, and they really have to come together.
Protesting the Catholic Church or Protestants.
Okay, I'm not gonna even walk into that, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I like the smaller the group gets, the happier I become as a viewer, and the more that they portray all moneyed, powered interests as potentially harmful or dangerous, the more it starts to feel like Preacher, and the happier I get. That's where I am at.
And more like Buffy. We have our Scooby Gang now, right?
Yes.
We've seen them go off and do missions and all of that. So I like that part of it too. I did love that Giles and Shotgun Mary break in, bust in, scare the living daylights out of this guy because apparently he had the Father Vincent. Giles had a horrible past.
We're only going to call him Giles.
He had a horrible past that made him like people are afraid of him, right? I love that. And then he's like, I just wanted to take a picture of it.
No.
In fact, I would have liked it better if they had not even brought the paper back. If they would have just been like, no, we just needed the phone. It's fine. You can keep it.
Things got a lot more interesting when after Ava worked a little bit with the quote unquote bad guys to do some testing, and we learned a little bit of the motivation of the bad guys, air quotes again. And then we saw the good guys, air quotes, maybe be a little bit more corrupt than we expected. And then we're seeing our Splinter faction break away from it. Everything is much, much more interesting now. I would say that at this point, this is maybe the most interesting the whole first season has been, because I feel like there's 4 or 5 people I trust, and everyone else I feel like has an agenda for us.
Yeah, I agree. We are going full Dan Brown next week, and I am all on board, given all of the setup that we've done. I'm a little conflicted on how I feel about JC and the crew from earlier in the season. I kind of liked that. I thought they might end up being the Scooby Gang. And now I'm wondering why we spent as much time with them as we did.
Because you have to, because we haven't seen him at all for 2 episodes, right?
Exactly.
So I love that kind of stuff. Give me enough backstory so that down the road, when we're interacting with other people, a problem shows up and somebody gets to do that thing where they say, I might know a guy. And we know exactly who the guy is going to be, that kind of thing.
God, I hope not.
God, I know. You don't like it?
I don't like I didn't like any of those characters. I thought that
You didn't?
I thought that they were very fluffy. They were a means to get her off of the streets and into a building.
and that might be fine if that's all they ever were. I have a feeling JC will come back. Maybe not the rest of them. But I almost want them all to come back
I do want them all to come back, man. I mean, I like visiting characters for a little while, having a legitimate reason to step away from them, and then being and it's like wrapping your own birthday gifts. It's like, man, what's in here again? And then you get to that part and you're like, oh, that's right, I forgot about these guys, this person, this situation, that time that we spent together, that kind of stuff.
All right, folks, that's Warrior Nun, episodes 7 and 8, season 1. Let's talk about I Know This Much Is True, the finale, episode 6 of the miniseries. When last we met, Brian left the room while Bryce and I discussed episode 5 because he was done. It was just too much, and that was totally fine. It hit you in ways that it didn't hit Bryce and I, and we understood that. But then you went and watched episode 6.
Yeah, which I think is a double-sized episodes. They weren't all 90-minute episodes, were they?
No, this was, I think the first one might have been
a little extended. Yeah.
This last 20. One was a little longer.
To be honest, like I granted myself permission to not complete the journey, but at least to give myself the gift of the book ending at the end. And I did real good for the first half hour. Of course, in this episode, we lose Dominic's brother, and there's a funeral, and they figure out where he is and where he went and all that stuff. And I did real good up until, of all things, I was struck by exactly 10 seconds of amazing acting by Rosie O'Donnell, because she plays Dominic's brother's caseworker, and she's so clear, like he is so clearly guarded, you're gonna whatever, and she is so unguarded, and that level of good acting just broke me, and I just broke down into tears, and I felt Dominic's rage against his dad. I felt his rage against his mysterious past and his history and so on, and I felt his revelation in therapy when it came to, you have a dad. It's the guy who's been with you since every memory you've ever had. That's the relationship you should be working on. And of course, I felt the horror and the loss, when he got to the hospital and saw that he was having, he had the big heart attack and all that stuff. And I felt the rejoining and friendship, and even that moment where it was, they didn't even have to tell us who his dad was. But it was almost like a gift that, his stepdad said, I swore I would never tell, but whatever. What do I got to lose? This is your family. And then he goes and he's like, another cousin, huh? And he was like, no, I don't want your money. I don't want to be part of any of this.
Ever since we started building the casino, a lot of cousins have come out of the woodwork. But it turns out that Drinkwater, Ralph Drinkwater, knew, like it wasn't a secret to him, and he thought that Dominic knew.
Yes. Right. I thought it was lovely, and I felt very contented. And for Dominic to reach a point, like to me, the all-star moment of the whole series is Dominic reaching a moment of self-awareness and self-understanding that he's able to go to his ex-wife and say out loud, I'm sorry that I got caught up. I'm sorry that I prevented us from growing a family. I understand where I am, and I'm on a journey to emotional fulfillment and success now. I mean, I was very thankful that you mentioned, Tom, that you liked the way the story ended, because I got to get some closure from it as well. I don't think I would have enjoyed it near as much if I had just tapped out.
The thing we talked about last week that I think bears on this, that I will bring up, last week was mostly a flashback to his grandfather and his grandfather's story, and we see his grandfather being
a monster,
not a great guy. Yeah, being a monster. And I said during the show when Bryce and I were talking last week that I thought it was very obvious that Dominic's father was his grandfather. And
they even reference it explicitly in this one, where he like it knows that that's the subtext it put down.
He reads the translation and says to his therapist, "How more obvious could it be? I mean, oh my God, right. I'm a disastrous result of a horrific thing."
what I was going to say is exactly that. I loved that they then in this episode tell you, like, you all thought that, but no. Also, you all thought that his stepdad was horrible, and we set you up to think that. And then they reveal, I think, that Dominic cherry picked memories to make him feel more horrible than he was and left out all the parts where he was good. I think what the magic trick that I think they pulled here in this final episode is to say, Dominic has been telling you this story. Dominic is an unreliable narrator, just like his grandfather was an unreliable narrator in that manuscript. And the reality was, Dominic was the reason he was unhappy. Yes, he had challenges, and Thomas was certainly one of them, but Dominic did a lot of this to himself. And the death of Thomas and the explosion at the funeral and all of that leads Dominic to finally realize, because he's in therapy, that it is under his control. And that while there are horrible things happening to him, he's making them more horrible, and he didn't have to. Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved. And Brian, I'm with you exactly. I loved that they then brought him back to realizing that, sure, his father made mistakes, did some awful things, but his father wasn't a bad guy. And now he realizes that, and he mends that relationship. And yes, he screwed up his marriage, but that didn't mean that that his relationship with Dessa had to stay screwed up. And it doesn't mean it had to be a fairy tale, we'll get back together either, but he could make peace with that and have her be a friend. And I love that this show that I started watching thinking, I don't want to watch this, I don't think I need to watch this, taught me that this is the problem that a lot of people have in their own lives, is they make their lives into a more tragic story than they are. And that if you deal with your tragedies rather than obsessing about them, in the end, you may end up happier and even possibly more fulfilled. And I thought that was such a wonderful final episode for this. And that's why I sent you that message, is like, I don't like having watched this, especially for those first 5 episodes in the first half of the 6th, but I'm glad I have watched it.
Well, what we watched was 5.5 episodes of somebody who we were led to believe needed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. And we saw that moment when he shrugged and realized that all he needed to do was take care of himself and to be kind and to understand other people.
Oh man, I hadn't even realized that. Because when he does that finally, too late for Thomas, he actually is able to help his dad.
Yeah, right.
And he doesn't have to help his dad and hurt himself to do it.
Right. He's no longer the victim of everything. I mean,
yeah,
like they spend 5.5 episodes explaining you all the things he's a victim of. And then they give us the grace of this moment of him just breathing deeply, shrugging his shoulders, and saying, I can only do what I can do. Let me start right now. And he starts with his wife, his ex-wife, starts with his dad. And it's like, it made me feel really good by the end.
Yeah,
I thought
he makes a difference in his dad's life without having to go through all of the trauma that you would have thought he would have, given what you knew about him from the first 5 episodes.
Yeah. So anyway, it was still very painful to watch, but I'm very, very glad you said what you said over text and got me to watch that last episode, because I felt a lightness. I mean, there's heaviness along the way. I think Bonnie called in the middle of the funeral, and I'm bawling. And then, but by the end of it, to see, his growth and development, it's a fine and wonderful piece of art.
And I agree that if Rosie O'Donnell doesn't win 1,700 Emmys for this, I will.
God, she was good. Of all the things I would think about Rosie O'Donnell, amazing, credible, supporting actor would not have been one of them.
Bryce, what did you think?
I thought it was a really nice kind of send off to the series. It gave it some direction that it was missing. I really appreciate it, especially when Dom is in that session with his therapist and she goes, this is not. I mean, it is a fictional story, but she goes like, this is not some picture perfect story. That is. It's easy to look at that pattern and say, oh, well, he did this to your mother.
This is a story you're telling yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think when Dessa at the funeral or after the funeral tells him, like, you're turning into him, which causes him to go and finish the manuscript. Like, I think there's a lot of good parallels, not just between Dom and Domenico, but also between Dom and Thomas and some of Thomas's paranoia. I mean, that's what we see a lot of, right. There's still a lot of ambiguity. Like, well, what did happen at the psychiatric hospital? The Drinkwater says it happened, and there's a piece of paper that says it happens, but that's, they do the blood test and that really doesn't show anything. It's nice to kind of see those parallels and for him to realize, like, what I need to do is forgive people, and like
most of all himself. Like that was the moment that brought me the most joy, is seeing it start with himself.
And having that forgiveness take place as a very understated sort of action, of a very internal action, right? And the circumstances, certainly with his father or stepfather, you go to the hospital and someone's just had a huge heart attack and doesn't recognize who you are. You don't really make a big deal out of, like, I'm forgiving you now. And so it was very, very sweet and very touching. The curse, the curse has been a big narrative plot point through the whole series as well. And I wonder what we're meant to take away from that, unless maybe we're supposed to drop it, and that's just a part of the writings of a man who was, very selfish and narcissistic. But I don't know. Is there a subtextual curse? Is it not a hex, but is it selfishness? Is it anger? Is it over controlling?
I did not see episode 5, as we've talked about, but from what I have seen, it felt to me like the message was, the curse is as real as you decide to make it. And Dominic gave himself permission to break the chain.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the subtext is, you are the curse. And in episode 5, we saw that Domenico could have been very happy. He could have had a loving wife. He could have had a peaceful home. He could have been that great man that he kept talking about. But he decided that his principles were more important. And therefore he caused himself to have a horrible home life. And the pattern happened again with Dominic, like we just talked about. He's the one who got in his own way and made a bad situation worse. Not that it wasn't a bad situation, but he made it worse. His grandfather had a good situation and made it bad. So I think that was the curse. The curse was your own, I don't know, self-flagellation or something.
One last thing, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. This is not a major
I know what
criticism
you're about to ask, and I have the same opinion. Why did he never turn into the Hulk? Because he got really mad a few times.
Well, the running thread through all of this of the Drinkwaters, and then at the end, it being that that Dom and Thomas are cousins of the Drinkwater twins. How did you guys feel about that? That felt very much like very perfect. Perfect.
It felt cozy. It felt cozy.
Especially given the story, I guess, especially given the plot point from like 20 minutes before of like, these things don't line up perfectly. I was expecting for it to be like, yeah, it's some random guy we've never heard of and you're never going to hear of again because he's not, in your life, because of course he wouldn't be.
In many other projects, I would have found that to be too cozy and simple of a wrap up. But for this story, why
is it cozy? I'm sorry, I'm missing that. I don't get that.
I think because
they talk about the Drinkwaters so many times beforehand.
Right, because there's a reason they're talking about the Drinkwaters is because they want to make the point at the end about the Drinkwaters that they couldn't make if they didn't introduce you to the Drinkwaters. Like, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, but didn't feel cozy to me.
Sure.
It felt like
And I
what
don't
they
think
were
it's-
trying to what
Mhm.
they were trying to show at the end was there is a definite aspect to how you're perceived, to how you are treated in society. And even though Dom and Tom are drinkwaters, they are never treated as drinkwaters. And in fact, they are taught to be prejudiced against the drinkwaters, even though they don't know it, but they are. I loved that. I thought it was fantastic. And I don't know that you could do it any other way without introducing all of those facts of the past and have Ralph Drinkwater in there. It
Yeah.
didn't feel cozy to me. It just felt like, oh, that's a story that they want to tell. And that's how you tell that story.
And I don't think it's a bold-faced sin of that being a too perfect connection, but it felt if one of the ideas is like you are not trapped in this limited universe of the people and the patterns around you, then having the Drinkwaters constantly be a thing through his childhood, in the manuscript with the previous generation, I don't know. I guess it's not the
I mean,
not the
if
best.
all
It's not
it-
the thing
if
I
all
would have
it-
thought to do. Is that's all.
If all it had been was like, and guess what? Surprise! It's the Drinkwaters, and that's all you get out of it. Then maybe. But the reason you have the Drinkwaters know him as a grandfather is so that it's clear why this had to be hidden. The reason and why she knew him. How she even knew the Dominic and Thomas's father. Like you have to have. It's because their father is a Drinkwater, you have to have that story have the Drinkwaters close, otherwise he wouldn't have been the father. Like it's just I don't know, it's part and parcel of telling that story. I don't think you could tell it any other way, and the way they told it didn't feel cheap to me because they didn't the whole plot revelation didn't revolve on the twist, it revolved on the reality of it, and I think that was super important.
And it's not, I don't know, immersion breaking. It just a small twinge on that for me. But I do think I think we get that great scene in the casino with Dom and
his cousin
Ralph.
His cousin Ralph, is like really sweet and is another extrapolation of the other messages that Dom has to learn. So a nice show overall. I enjoyed it.
That is, I know this much is true, the entire season. Let's talk about the Larry Sanders Show, episode 6 and 7 of season 5, The Matchmaker and Make-A-Wish. Larry has trouble firing a staff member that's messing up because he's dating her. Is that right?
No.
She's
just
new?
awful. She's played by Lynn Raska, that we later know from 24. She was in Mr. Show, and it's like she's like a supernaturally awful pre-show interviewer who is getting everything wrong or whatever.
Oh, right.
There's
We met her out of. Now I remember.
Right,
This is Mary
And
Lou.
she's related to Paula. I think they're
And
like
she's
cousins or something.
replacing Paula.
Right.
We'll only see Janine Garofalo like one more time, I think.
And there is that great moment when they have Tim Conway.
Conway.
Tim Conway.
Tim
His
Conway
whole TV set was great. He broke
Yeah.
me.
what I mean, he sells it, right? And then he gets to that moment when Larry's like, so you're in Speed 2. He's like, the hell are you talking about? I'm not hardly working at all or whatever. And it's like I felt because I haven't seen Speed 2. I don't know if he's in it or not. and it's just like I felt that pain. And then he's like, nah, I'm messing with you. Yeah, of course. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
And then I guess the B plot was Hank trying to help his assistant, pick up after a bad breakup, Brian, his assistant Brian, and then sort of inadvertently leading to him being spotted and gossiped about in the trades that he was at a gay bar because he took Brian out to a gay bar to try to help him meet a new guy.
Yeah, but even then, that one stretches credulity for me a little bit because even in the mid 90s, it was already pretty fashionable for straight people to go and hang out at gay bars at that time. So,
but not for Hank Kingsley. I think
sure.
That's the part I might believe is that they'd say, hey, look, if it was David Duchovny, we wouldn't bat an eye, right? But it's Hank Kingsley. Why is he there?
Right. Yeah. That was fine. And then
a weird
weird payoff. I agree.
With the transitioned new girlfriend that he spent all episode.
Yeah, that felt very of its time.
That felt like making a trans person the butt of a joke.
Yeah, I agree.
The Make-A-Wish was great. Make-A-Wish felt like a saga. Like they put so much into Make-A-Wish. It even just that first scene where they're all in Larry's office and all of the story plots are like convened into one place. It felt really, really, really sharp in a way we haven't seen a lot of Larry Sanders.
Well, because this is 3 complex plots tied together. They're not even independent, right? Because you have the Cuban cigar thing. With the customs agent showing up to investigate
illegal imports. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you have People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive coming, which involves Ben Stiller getting bumped off the list. And of course, Ben Stiller appears, which is fantastic. And then you have the Make-A-Wish, what the show is named after, the episode is named after, with Artie saying, keep Larry away from the Make-A-Wish person or he'll have a horrible show, which is a very classic Larry Sanders, like horrible position of like, oh my God, you've got this dying boy and his one last wish is to meet Larry Sanders, but you can't let him meet Larry Sanders because selfishly Larry will have a bad show.
No, on top of that, you have the actual reporter from People Magazine there as this constant threat of being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
With an investigation into Cuban cigars happening, and it was great. I don't know. They never reveal what the kid has, and I was hoping.
I kept thinking it would be lung cancer.
That's what I was thinking too, because Marilyn Rathska gets him to smoke a cigar. I was convinced it was going to be lung cancer, but they never reveal it.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't go there with the whole getting him to smoke the cigars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, a thing I noticed between both of these episodes, very awkward punch outs in terms of the outro jokes. It felt, I don't know, for whatever reason they didn't.
What was the one on the Make-A-Wish one?
The kid asked for a second wish, and it's like, is that he wants to come back or that he just didn't have a good time? I don't know. That was a weird one.
I think we're all meant to assume it's that he wants to come back to the set, but yeah.
Yeah. And then the Matchmaker one was the with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which was also kind of just both wonky landings on both of those. When I usually
the episode punch outs, they both were a little awkward.
But meanwhile,
the Make-A-Wish one, not so much. It's just that you had such an amazing episode that punch out doesn't feel like it rises to the same level.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I guess we don't have much to say about this one. I think this is when the show is definitely hitting its groove and we know the characters. I do like that we're still managing 5 seasons in to explore territory that we've not already explored before. Bit of a bummer that all of the homophobic moments with Hank don't age as well as I think we all would have liked, but meanwhile, that was some punk rock energy with the Make-A-Wish kid.
So we did have a lot to say, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Anything else to say about Larry Sanders Show 6 and 7 season 5?
No, I continue to bravely watch it.
Well, good. You're a hero, Brian. No other way of putting it. That's Larry Sanders Show, The Matchmaker, and Make-A-Wish. Next week, we will be talking about the last 2 episodes of Warrior Nun. We'll be talking about episodes 8 and 9 of Larry Sanders Show, and we will be talking about something else. You'll have to tune into After Talk on our Patreon to find out what that is ahead of time if you want. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us there at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll spoil you again next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.